Thanks for joining Just Us Chatting. I'm Tamara.
And I am Michael, and this is Morphe, Ojibble. And we just wanted to sit down today and talk a little bit about, well, just things, what we've seen going on in the world recently. One thing that caught our attention that we're very, kind of pleased about is Mrs., or I shouldn't say Mrs., I should say Ms. Rahaf Muhammad Al-Qanun, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm probably wrong, but, I'm sure I'm butchering her name, but Rahaf Muhammad Al-Qanun, 18-year-old Saudi woman who fled her family for fear of violence, and received asylum in Canada. So she's been in Canada this week, experiencing, for the contrast in culture. A week ago, she, couldn't leave her house without permission, and now, she's just like a human. She's allowed to do what she wants, and it doesn't. I'm sure it doesn't hurt to be greeted by the president of Canada, and a whole entourage of media and all this kind of stuff to, to kind of let you know that people care.
People are behind you, and
so. I
mean, she was fearing for her life. I mean, her family, didn't they threaten to kill her?
Well, that's what she said. Well, here, just let me put her on. You can get a look at the woman that we're talking about. This is Rahaf Muhammad Al-Qanun, right? She says that. Let me see. So we linked to this article in the description. So if you're watching, you can check it out there. It's in the New York Times article talking about basically how she's been spending her time in Canada. And a little bit about her story. She was originally she fled Saudi Arabia. She used a friend's credit card to buy tickets, and then snuck out and hopped on a plane.
Well, hadn't they, her family had gone on a vacation or some kind of a trip to Kuwait, I thought.
Right. So yeah, that's right. So she'd used a friend's credit card to buy tickets from Kuwait to
Thailand, right?
Thailand, I think to Australia, but there was a layover in Thailand, in Bangkok, and apparently from Kuwait she was okay to travel alone, but in Saudi Arabia she wasn't allowed to travel alone, so she had to wait until her family left the country with her, and she had to set it up ahead of time so that she could have, she used a friend's credit card to purchase tickets from Kuwait to Australia, so that when she was in Kuwait she could run away from her family, get into an airplane and go where she wanted to go. And then when she was in Thailand, the Saudi Arabian government was saying that they wanted her back. The embassy was like, no, she can't just leave without without somebody who's without permission,
without
basically.
Her guardian, her
without
male guardian.
So,
and what makes matters worse is that her dad is a high up member of some the government there.
He's an emir of some kind. I don't know. I don't know how it's all structured, but
So they were trying to get the Thai airport or the Thai government to hand her over.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember what all went down. But she was there for a few days,
6.
I think, in the airport.
Yeah, she was in the airport or in a hotel, airport hotel.
Yeah.
For 6 days, waiting for international politics to decide whether or not she was allowed to travel.
And this woman, she's 18 years old. She's not a minor. Well, I don't know obviously they have different rules in Saudi Arabia, but she's a young woman, and her family treated her so poorly that at one point they locked her in her room for 6 months for cutting her hair.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine what this girl has been through. I'm so thrilled that she made it to Australia, and then now she's been offered asylum.
No, she didn't make it to Australia.
No, she did. I think she did go.
She went all the way to Australia.
I'm pretty sure she went, but then she was offered.
Maybe it says something about it in here. Let me see.
Obviously, we haven't been paying full attention to this, just kind of peripherally, but...
Yeah. From the welcome, here we go. Now she can do things unimaginable for a woman at home. From the welcome I had and love I've been shown, I saw this is a country that respects human rights and the dignity of a person. it's also cold. So it's 30 degrees in Toronto, and you know, so fleeing your family. 6 nights holed up in a Bangkok airport hotel. Opened a new Twitter account and mounted a campaign for asylum. I'm afraid my family will kill me, she tweeted, adding later that her family had threatened to kill her before and considered her as property or their slave. Furthering her danger, she renounced Islam on Twitter. Whoa!
And I mean, that's probably something that they could do an honor killing for renouncing their religion.
It's apostasy.
Wow.
She said, they will kill me because I fled and because I announced my atheism. They want me to pray and wear a veil, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
International outrage over the attempts to send her back to Saudi Arabia quickly mounted, although Miss Al-Qanoun had planned to fly on to Australia. The Canadian government granted her asylum, and on Saturday morning she arrived at the Toronto airport, where she was greeted by the Canadian Foreign Minister. Oh, Canadian Foreign Minister, not the president.
Yeah.
And phalanx of reporters.
Yeah.
So.
Anyways, they don't have a president, don't they? Have just
yeah,
a
they
prime
do.
minister?
The prime minister. In Saudi Arabia, Miss Al-Qanoun was a first-year university student studying basic science and math, one of 10 children of a well-off emir. She said that life had been financially comfortable, but that she had no freedom. And there she is.
Things grew even harder.
Things grew even harder, she said, when her father left the city and put her under the guardianship of her older brother. She described her life as one of strict rules and abuse at the hands of her family. After she cut her hair in a way that her family did not approve of, her brother locked her in a room for 6 months, she said. A few months ago, when she removed her niqab, he beat her and locked her up again, she said. After days of silence, the first comments about the case have emerged from Saudi Arabia. In a statement, the head of the Saudi government-funded National Society for Human Rights accused countries of inciting Saudi female delinquents to rebel against their family values and seek asylum. He called the actions political, not humanitarian. Well, there may be some truth to that. I mean, you know, like, maybe it is political.
Yeah.
We have no way of verifying whether or not this woman was beaten or anything like that. It's not like there's been any kind of like trial or any vetting of any evidence. It's just here's a lady who's scared to go back to Saudi Arabia and pretty much everyone in the world goes, that's reasonable.
But the thing is, we know what their values are. We know that they have no problem beating their wives, beating their daughters.
We do know that, but we know that from. Yes, we kind of, but again, it's like one of those things where it's like we don't know
firsthand
that her family was like that, or that she's in danger. You know what I mean? Like,
but it's a pretty good possibility that she was not free. She was not able to get a job without their permission.
It's probably the case. Probably the case. I mean, you
never know anything for sure unless you're there.
Right. But like, so is it political?
Well, maybe. But that doesn't mean it's not also humanitarian of people to give her asylum and help her be safe and allow her to live her life as she sees fit.
Yep.
That is the hallmark of the Western world, and it's unfortunate, that plenty of people have to live in a society in these countries where the women are not free and they're not allowed to do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And they are imposed upon in so many ways, and I know not all of the women there are unhappy. Like, I've heard that there are women that, are okay with the way that they live and, the traditional ways of being, but I think there are plenty, as we're starting to see online, there are plenty that do not want to have to cover their head, that do not want to have to cover their face, that want to be able to drive, that want to be able to go to school and work, and they want to be able to do life as they want to do it.
Yep.
And not as, they're told to do it by their husbands or fathers or brothers.
Yep.
We're starting to see this. It's not like it's way over there and we have no idea about whether these women want to do this or not.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? We can start to see these things with social media.
It's true.
And I get a little passionate about it because I know that I would be in the same position as that girl. I would be entirely happy to run away from my family if they were treating me in such a way.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, or if you were, you know, keeping me hostage and, you know.
Shh, don't tell anyone.
I feel for these women, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like they're such horrible people. They just want to live normal.
Yeah.
They want to live a little bit closer to the Western way, I think.
Yep.
You know, free to.
Well, what is the Western way? I mean, the Western way is primarily non-theocratic, right? It doesn't mean that we're not that there's not religious people, or that we're not allowed to observe.
We're free to practice or not practice religion as we see fit.
We're free to practice or not practice. We're free to, and the laws of the land are not the same as, or fundamentally tied to, the laws, or the strictures of a given religion, mythological,
faith or whatever.
Right.
Exactly. It's like we have separation of church and state,
right,
which I know some people are not thrilled with, but I think it's
most people are thrilled with.
Well, I think
really?
Some people that are very religious would like there still to be more Christianity to be back in government, at least to a certain extent. But yeah, plenty of people are happy that there's a separation, and I'm very happy because, you know, there's no way it should be tied, you know.
Yeah.
In the Middle East, you've got Sharia law, and isn't that basically the religious law?
Yeah,
and it's,
as far as I know, Sharia is. I mean, like I'm pretty ignorant of this, but as far as I know, Sharia is kind of like it's kind of like the catechism of Catholic Church. It's like these are the rules. It's the dogma.
So could you imagine in this country, you know, according to the Bible, homosexuality is wrong, right? So what if we had Christianity as the forefront of our government, and so therefore we made it illegal to be gay? Could you imagine that? Like, how far we've come.
Okay, let's go even like that. This is a weird thing about religion too, and people. In the same chapter.
Yeah.
And this is something that a lot of people who have you know kind of run in atheist circles or stuff like this know. But in the same chapter, you know, it's like man shall not lie with another man. It's an abomination or something like this.
Yeah.
The same chapter of the Bible forbids the wearing of mixed woven cloths.
Right.
Right? So like rayon is you know also illegal by that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's not just that, like, you know, it's not like, well, the Bible says it's illegal. It's like it's people like there's so much in there that you could grab. It's like, well, why don't we, you know, march around why don't we march around our enemies, you know, 5 times with the you know the Ark of the Covenant blowing horns and then massacre everyone? Well, but we've kind of decided that that's not the way to do business anymore. Right. You know what I mean? Like, and then we've kind of rationalized why that part doesn't really matter anymore.
Right. We don't like interpret the Bible in such a literal sense. And I don't at all, you know, I really don't interpret it, but I mean, sometimes I talk about it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, most Christians don't interpret the Bible in a literal sense. Maybe they don't even know. Maybe they don't even know all of what's in it. Maybe they haven't even read it completely. They just kind of have a certain idea about it, and they go to church and they let, you know, the pastor or preacher tell them what's in it. But the thing is, Islam is such a young religion, and there's a lot more fundamentalist Muslims. There's plenty of kind Muslims. I know that there's plenty of kind Muslims out there that do not agree with honor killings, and they do not agree with, you know, like actual jihad, and, you know, there's plenty of good ones. I mean, it's a tricky thing, but there's plenty of fundamentalist Islamists that, like, literally interpret the Quran in the literal sense. Yeah. And so we haven't done that with the Bible in a long time. You know what I mean?
Okay, so let's think about this too. Let's break this out culturally, because again, spiral dynamics. We've got levels of worldview development, right? So it's not that we haven't, because there are people in the United States right now who still think the world is 6,000 years old, right? And that the reason people exist right now is because Noah saved all the people and the animals on an ark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was a giant flood that killed everyone. Like, these are, like, there are people who really, I mean, who think that, you know, Jesus was alive at the same time as dinosaurs and stuff like this. You know what I mean? Like, they still exist, right?
That's true. That's true.
The reason for that is because we have stages of cultural worldview development, and at the, you know, red and blue meme, it's very, you know, kind of mythic magic and kind of and literal interpretations. Very like, well, that's what the book that we all live by says. So you know, like, I don't have time.
Why do they arbitrarily decide to, you know, not agree with the like that because obviously they're wearing clothing of mixed, you know, materials or mixed fabric or whatever.
Which is very it's incredibly incoherent, right? But basically, I think it boils down to most people, and this is where there's like, I get angry at like the whole like elitism in our country. Most people don't have time. Most people do not have the time, or you know, or are terrified to take the time, let's say, right, to like allow other things to slide, so that they can, you know, really spend time thinking about history and science and
why they believe what they believe.
Why they believe what they believe, other cultures, studying other religions, and like, what do other people say?
And I can completely understand that, because it does. It takes away from your time doing other things. It takes away from, you know, making a living. It takes away from, you know, just enjoying life, you know, enjoying your family. Like, it does take up time to actually read about these things, or look into these things, or analyze, you know, your own beliefs.
Yeah, if you, like, in order to, like, it takes a lot of time and effort to deeply investigate truth.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you're like looking at the truth of cultures, the truth of racial relations, the truth of gender, whatever, the truth of spirituality, scientific truths are insanely complicated, right? So, you know, it takes a lot of time to really think that much about these things. Yeah. And so, you know, most of the world isn't going to, you know, stop every morning for a couple hours and talk about stuff like this. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not the case. Those people don't have that kind of drive to do that, for one, and then for two,
it's not
like
feasible if they have kids and...
No. You guys are going to have to wait. Hold on a second. I was getting a phone call there. On my phone. And now we're upside down.
We're upside down.
There we go. Back to normal. So, anyway, cultural worldview development. So we've got people who, you know, are basically, you know, at this place where they're like, look, this seems to work just, you know, well enough to keep people from being like horribly vicious monsters to each other. Yeah. It's good enough. Yeah. Right? Or this, you know, this works well enough to, you know, kind of create a cohesive society that allows us to eventually start accumulating wealth and you know, if you look at a red meme society, it's like, they're not even like concerned about whether or not people are brutalized. They're really just concerned about whether or not they can get food and whether or not they can, you know, amass enough wealth to start to stabilize. You know, it's like, it's really So, you know, if you've got a religion, if you've got a religious structure that says, look, here's all the rules. Yeah. Right. It's super convenient to just kind of go like, okay, cool. That's taken care of.
I'll just
like, I don't
try
have to
to
think
follow...
about being good. Like, just follow these words.
Yes.
Done.
Yes.
Right? You're not kill that person. They're not following these words. Kill them. Like, get rid of them. Right? It makes.
Well, okay, that's, you know, an extreme
like,
example, and obviously, you know, back in the Middle Ages, we did that as well. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
Especially,
burn the witch,
man,
you know?
especially when Protestants started coming about, because
Mm-hmm.
the Catholics were like, no, you're changing the rules now. Like,
Yeah.
you're saying that, like, you know, you don't need a priest to interpret the words
Right.
of God. Now, so you're a heathen.
Yeah,
you're a bad
heretic.
person. You're a heretic, you know.
Right.
We're going to kill you. So that's when
God forbid you're an atheist. You know what I mean? Like, forget that.
Even though it wasn't like that at all. It just was, it was a different interpretation of things.
God forbid you're an atheist.
But, yeah, so, I mean, obviously, but what was that, in the 1500s, 1400s?
It was, you know, not...
I mean,
it was not all that long ago that there were, you know, the Salem witch trials and...
Yeah.
And,
it lasted for a few hundred years, I think.
yeah,
you
the
know,
Inquisition
the fighting between Protestants and Catholics,
and the fighting between Protestants and Catholics is still going on in Northern Ireland, like as recently as the 90s and the
yes.
early 2000s.
The Wind That Shakes the Barley was a good movie that kind of brought that to light,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't have known. I mean, I was
Yeah.
also really young when that was going on, but...
So, you know, the fact of the matter is, you've got, it's like, here's a set of rules, and it's like, okay, cool, now I don't have to think about, you know, like morals and
Right.
ethics, because that's hard. And
Yes.
it takes up a lot of time.
It does.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I'll just listen to some other expert or some book or some system of ethics and rules, and, you know, as long as it works, it's fine.
Right.
And
But what do you
people
think...
protect that.
Yeah, but
Right?
so what do you think... We're really coming to a time where a lot less people are utilizing that system of morals.
Right.
You know, like a lot less people are following a specific religion. A lot more people are moving away from that. A lot more people are, I don't know, looking to metaphysics or, you know, Eastern philosophy or this or that. But, like, what about the people that are just kind of like, screw all that religion nonsense? I'm just going to do my own thing. And, you know, God's just a fairy tale or, you know, whatever. Like, I don't know, where are they getting their morals? Or, like, are they actually thinking about these things? Are they actually
They are
figuring
actually
out on their own how to live? And
so the weird thing is that, like,
I think about someone like Sam Harris,
Right.
you know.
so the weird thing is that atheism or agnosticism or apostasy, you know, kind of going, you know, no, I don't believe these things, is a morally and kind of like ethically and in terms of moral depth and sophistication, it's a step forward from fundamentalism,
Right.
right? It's not as far as you can go, right? But it is, you know, to kind of say, look, these myths aren't literal, is a step in the right direction, right? So it's true that individuals have agency and that these are stories that are, you know, set up as guidelines for us to, stories that are set up as guidelines for us to kind of use as reference.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of like guiding stars. You know, it's like navigate the ocean by looking at the constellations, right? And we told stories about these constellations so that we could figure out where we're going, right?
Right.
Same kind of thing. We've got archetypes. It's like, look, this is what a hero is like. It doesn't mean that every time there's an opportunity for you to throw yourself on some sword, you know, or jump on top of a grenade, that's what you should do.
Right.
Right? It doesn't mean that you should just, like, you know, like, in every instance try to, you know, get yourself killed for, you know, for some, you know, for some cause, like, all the time. But it's, you know, it's like, well, that's something that's, you know, heroic. There's something good about that. It's kind of like, well, how you kind of negotiate with yourself. How heroic can I be? You know, so I don't think it's feasible or reasonable to, like, throw them out entirely, because they're great templates. You know what I mean? Like the stories are so rich and deep. But I also think that, you know, it's definitely a step forward to say, well, yeah, but that's not literally what actually happened. It's not that's not science, and it's not history.
Yeah. I mean, it might be based on history or someone's interpretation of history.
It's like a lot of it is oral tradition.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in well, here's another thing, is that a lot of it's oral tradition in Judeo-Christian framework.
Right.
It's not oral tradition in Islam because they've
been only around since.
They're part of the Abrahamic religions because they come from the Judeo from the Jewish lineage.
Yeah.
Kind of.
How long? They've only been around like 400 years or something.
No. 1300.
Oh, okay.
They're like seven. I think they're about 700 years younger than, like Muhammad. I think Muhammad was in, like the year 600 or 700, something like that.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure. It's vaguely like that. You know what I mean? It's like there's a gap. It's a decent size gap, and if you take the amount of gap between the time of Jesus and the time of Muhammad, right? And you say, okay, well, let's go that far back into Christianity's history, and you'd find brutalism.
Right.
Right? So it's like, it's a younger religion.
But, yeah.
and there's, maybe these kinds of world-shaping ethical traditions, I'm sure that they go through developmental stages. I mean, it just makes sense. Like, everything develops, all human systems develop over time. And most development goes through stages, right? So I don't see anything particularly I don't think that Islam is necessarily different. It's just younger.
Yeah. And so they're at a different stage of development, so they're still taking things very literally, and
by and large.
Yeah.
There's
and they're more like what, red to blue?
Yeah,
would you say?
I would say so. And the thing is that it's like to have that conversation, it's like you got to realize that it's not it's a really like complicated thing to talk about because it's not because of a race, it's not because of a religion. It's like it's not that that religion's worse because it hasn't developed as much. It's like that would be like saying that one flower is better because it's fully blossomed and the other one is still a bud. It's like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And
yeah. But
yeah.
I mean, that doesn't mean there aren't problems with.
And I don't even want to say that like one is fully blossomed because there's never a full blossoming, right? Like blossoming is.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Some things are more developed than others.
Right.
It's just that.
So
it's dangerous, though. It's dangerous.
Yes.
Because it is a murderous.
Well, partially it's dangerous because we refuse to admit that it's dangerous. Right? Like.
Well, not everyone refuses.
No, not everyone refuses to admit it, but also not everyone. Here's the other thing, like. Okay, so. It's
complex.
It's so complex, and I don't want to I don't want to be like just horribly offensive. You know what I mean? I'm not trying that.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to draw like analogies. Of course, they're going to be bad analogies. No.
We're going to be upside down again.
Yeah. I'm doing this all weirdly.
Gonna have to call them back.
I'm gonna have to call them back in a little bit, I guess. How long have we been on here? For 3 minutes? It's gonna be a while. So
you're not trying to be offensive.
I'm not trying to be offensive. I don't want to offend anyone. But it's like if. Let's say there's, you've got a family. So we're all a family, right? We're a global family, and there's a member of the family who is kind of in their late teens and they're, full of hubris and, they're, rowdy and headstrong. Well, that's not bad. But if they hurt people, then they have to be told to stop. You know what I mean? Like they have to be like, it's like, no, we're not going to allow that. And it doesn't make them like
any less.
Right. Here's the thing. It doesn't make them a bad.
Or...
It doesn't make them less of a member of family. It doesn't make them a bad person. Like, because, and that's the other thing, is there's no finality to it, right? Mm-hmm. There's no finality to a person either, right? It's like you can do wrong things, right?
Yeah. And you can do wrong things and actually not be malevolent. You can do wrong things because you have a wrong way of thinking.
Right, right.
Because you're a little bit confused, or you think that you're doing the right thing.
Right.
And there are people that convince themselves that hurting someone is the right thing.
Right. Almost.
You know?
I don't think there's that many people who actually think that they're doing the wrong thing.
Right. I think most
I mean?
people are not completely malevolent. Most people, most people actually think that they're doing what is right, however misguided they may be.
Right.
Right.
And they, and like...
Or they feel like they're justified somehow.
Right.
They may even realize that they're hurting the person,
right.
but they feel justified in doing that.
Exactly.
I'm sure the men that stone women for, adultery, even if that woman was actually truly raped, they feel justified in that. They feel like she sinned. They feel like she was doing something wrong, and therefore they need, for justice, they need to teach everyone a lesson around her, or her a lesson, or something. I don't know, but I don't think that they're truly malevolent.
In fundamentalist societies, it's not even so much about like teaching a lesson. That's more of like it's actually more of a kind of a like a modern idea is that an individual has the ability to become better or change, and that you have agency as a person individually, right?
Yeah.
In the fundamentalist view, it's like you've sinned, you're a stain on what is holy, you must be eradicated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not like it can't teach a person a lesson if they're killing them.
Right. It's not really like that. It's kind of more like just
you've done wrong.
Kill everything that goes outside the boundaries.
And then also by doing that, the idea is that it helps keep others in line.
Yes, there's some of that. There's that too. But it's brutal, and it's basically just it comes from a rationalization that there is something holy, right? And you have defiled it, and so that can't be allowed.
Yeah.
Which is just like that's the rationalization.
Yeah.
And that rationalization sounds insane to people in the modern world.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even believe that that's actually like real. Like a lot of people think that fundamentalists in the Muslim world are or in Christian fundamentalists are somehow think the way that the rest of the modern world does, but they're just bad. You know what I mean? Or like they're oppressed, and so they're reacting like if they're Christian they're bad, if they're Muslim they're oppressed. That's how that works, right? They're Christian, they're just evil people, expressing their fundamentalism. If they're Muslim, they're oppressed by global capitalism and imperialism. But it's literally that simple. It's like we think of it as a crazy rationale that there is something that is absolutely sacred. And anything that defiles it must be destroyed.
Yeah.
Right? That's insane to us because we're like, no, you don't have any. Like it seems obvious to us that nobody has any claim to make that kind of judgment.
Right.
Human beings don't have that claim.
Now, if you break the law, then justice will serve its purpose, and if you're found guilty, you will go to prison for a certain amount of time.
Right.
So like we believe more in like that kind of thing. We believe in the law.
The law for us is a further abstraction. It's like, yes, there is some truth.
Yeah.
We believe that there is some sort of objective truth about like the right way to be.
Right.
That people can be a certain way and that is better for interacting together, right? But that it's not necessarily confined to any specific cultural framework.
Right.
right? That it's human beings have a we can interact with each other as individuals, basically. All human beings are individuals, and there's probably a way that we can organize ourselves, that's free from that's free from religious strictures that are based on mythology, right? That we can find some objective way to say, no, human beings that we don't need stories to do that. Now, I don't know that that's entirely true. I think that we do need stories. And I think that a better way of going about it is to investigate all of the world's stories and see where they overlap and where they agree with each other and where they make sense, and then go, wow, there's something deep about all of humanity right here in this kind of story.
Yeah.
Right? When we see similarities in all the stories, then it's like, that's real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's a universal cultural experience.
Yeah. You don't think we've done that to a certain degree?
I think
like art, like movies, and like in creativity.
Yeah, I think we're working in. I think a lot of artists are working in that direction. I think that a lot of people are. That's one of the reasons I'm kind of like not thrilled with the whole intersectional thing, because it's basically just taking different colored people and different gendered people and sticking them in the old Judeo-Christian stories, hero stories. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, here's the old, our regular old boring Western, cultural myths. And it's like, let's get rid of the white people, get rid of the white males, just put like black women in there instead, and we'll call it good. It's like, there's no depth to that. It's, it's shallow.
It feels very shallow and disingenuous a little bit.
So, like,
rather than creating new movies and storylines that feel more
rather than like going and grabbing Indian culture, right? And going like, okay, tell us what a hero looks like in Indian culture. And then trying to like take that idea and bring it into an American, into a Western framework and go, all right, here's a Hindu hero myth, right? And telling a story with Western characters in a Hindu hero myth framework.
But do you think, though, that people would connect with that? That's the thing. Like, would we? I mean,
we'd start to discover where we connect.
I mean, obviously, like, okay, over the years, you and I watched a lot of martial arts movies, and a lot of them were about Wong Fei-hung. Him as the hero, like, they didn't always use his name, but I mean, that was the general idea. That's who they were. That's who the hero was in the movie. It was based on this Wong Fei-hung character. And I mean, we connected. I mean, I definitely was drawn to some of the hero stories of,
and the thing is, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's you can watch a movie like Jet Li's Fearless, or you can watch some of these great martial arts masterpieces, and you can see the way that, like, you can find the places where
it connects.
Where the cultures kind of overlap and agree on some fundamental point.
Sure.
Right? That this kind of action is heroic. Right? Or this kind of action is evil.
Is reprehensible, right? Yeah.
And you start to see them, you start to see these things kind of like,
because there are plenty of similarities.
There's lots of similarities, and and those similarities, they're archetypal. They're kind of like there's a pattern to them that is independent of the actual expression. So whether it's Wong Fei-hung or some military hero from the Western tradition, or whatever. It's we've got similar stories, and and where they overlap, that's a lot deeper. To me, that's a lot deeper. If you can try and find stories and narrative frameworks from other cultures, and then try to represent that in America, like with Western characters and in the English language and stuff like this, you start to find the places where, wow, you know, that story is wild and weird. Of course, at first you're gonna be like, that's nuts, that's weird, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand what's going on here. This is like, why are they upset about that? I don't get it.
Right.
The Protector.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. You watch The Protector, and it's like, this guy's like going nuts over his elephant.
Right.
Like, it's insane. What's going on? Like, why?
Because it's like, and it goes beyond just like, it's this really cool creature. Like, it's family to him.
Right.
It's his family.
Right.
And so, there's kind of a disconnect
there. Yeah, there's a little bit of a disconnect. You're like, right? So, like, you know, like, this guy wants his elephant. When there's certain versions of it where they dubbed it for Western audiences where he's actually upset about the fact they killed his father.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because in the struggle where they stole the elephant, like his father gets shot, right?
Right.
And in the version that we know, that we watch, which is
he gets shot but doesn't get
shot,
killed,
and he's like, "Don't worry, father, I'll get him back." You know, and like his father's going to be okay.
Right.
And we see him later in the movie, kind of like holding his stomach and stuff like this, so we know that he's okay. You know, and he's just pissed off about his elephant.
Right.
You know.
Huh.
But it's, you know, the elephant is sacred.
Yeah.
It's like a sacred animal.
Yeah.
Right?
And didn't he he grew up with it, like from it being a baby, maybe? Yep.
But I mean, so there's one thing with family, right? But then the elephant actually represents something sacred, right? Which is beyond family.
Okay.
Right? Because the elephant represents like Ganesh, and like it's like a deity.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of like, you know, cows representing a deity, and it's like they can do whatever they want. They walk around the road, and people are just like, oh, okay.
But somehow I wasn't confused by it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somehow, like, I don't know. I allow myself to be taken on a journey with movies, and sometimes things confuse me. But for some reason, that I just was like, okay, yeah, he's pissed about the elephant.
About the elephant, right? Like, but there's like a strange disconnect there.
Sure.
So I don't know. I just kind of got way off in the weeds there. We were talking about
our tendency.
What were we talking about?
I mean,
the developmental hierarchies of religion.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, we've got places where, you know, here we are in the Western world. Like I said, it's a further abstraction. It's like, okay, yes, there is an ideal, right? The blue meme says there's an ideal, and anything that kind of goes against that ideal, and we already know what it is. That's the big difference, right? The blue meme says we already know what that ideal is. Right? And so it's in a book, it's written down, these are the rules, this is the order that we're going to all follow, this is the highest ideal.
Yeah.
You know, we've got people that kind of, you know, the priests, right, that kind of reinforce and distribute this cultural, this way of being, right? And anything that steps outside of that is like not just, you know, something else or an experiment or something. It's violent and wrong and just evil. It's horrible, right?
Yeah.
But it's all based on an ideal, and that's the key, right? What we eventually did was kind of that ideal worked long enough, right, for us to have a stable enough society that we were able to like scrape together a standard of living that there were enough people sitting around going, I don't have to like hunt or farm or like do anything right now. Maybe I'll read a book. You know what I mean? Like it was, you know, hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years of you know, this kind of order.
Yeah. That
was, you know, just purely based on there is an ideal. We already know what it is.
Yeah.
If you're outside of that, we're going to kill you. And that was required to build a certain amount of stability. Right? And that stability then eventually allowed there to be enough surplus goods and surplus time and human capacity, right, for some people to sit around and go, maybe the sun doesn't go around the earth. You know, maybe it's okay if a woman has a job. Maybe.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it took a long time for us to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We didn't really have time
get to a place where it was like, maybe it's reasonable to question some of these. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's stable enough that we can work with it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and move it around a little bit. It took a long time for us to get to that point. And then what happened was we eventually went, oh, okay, there is an ideal, but we don't know what it is. And that's the revolution of the modern Enlightenment, right? It's like there is an ideal, there is truth, but we just don't know what it is, and discovering it's an eternal unfolding process. You know, like we're constantly investigating it, like more and more and more, trying to find it, right? And it's an eternally nuanced thing, the truth. You know, it's an unfathomable. It's an infinitely nuanced. Objective truth is infinitely nuanced. It's like never reaches beyond. Like there's no way to reach the end of our investigation of it. We'll always be, you know, there's continual capacity to learn more, to know more.
Yeah. Certainly.
So, that's the revolution of the modern world, and that's kind of what our law is based on, is this idea that, you know, there is some sort of true way to be, right? There is justice, and it's one, like, first of all, the Blue Meme gave us, you know, there's justice that isn't just about who's got the most power, right? For all you postmodernists out there, you need to understand this. Like, all right, religion gave us the idea that that justice isn't just about power. Okay, because it has to fit within the framework of an ideal that is superordinate to the person in power. That's where this came from, right? Religion is even the king must be subject to God, right? And that's why you have, you know, that's why even kings and queens can be executed. Yeah. Right? That's why the whole thing is like you're not actually God. Yeah. Like we're going to set society up with this idea that you're God's representative on earth and all this, but if you're not a good representative, right, then you don't get to keep doing that. Right. Because there's a truth that's higher than you are. Right. So this idea that power is subject to an ideal comes from religion. That's a gift that we have from religion. People don't. We take that for granted. We need to not take that for granted. Yeah. But in any case,
in modern times, we just have Congress. And just have like.
Well, in modern times, the ideal is not religious ideal. It's more of a philosophical ideal. It's a truth, right? We believe in, you know, kind of like the universal human rights, right? Like we believe in universal human rights. What does that mean?
That everyone has a right to exist and be free and
right. Be free of coercion.
Right.
Be free of the arbitrary application of power. Yeah. You know, for interfering in their life. Yeah. You know, arbitrarily based on somebody else's desire to have more stuff. Right. You know what I mean? Like we've got a different kind of ideal. Or, yeah. It's disconnected from a, you know, specific religious tradition, although it's informed by our religious heritage. Right? Yeah. Thou shalt not kill. Yeah. Right? It's like, well, that goes way back. Obviously, that's not an invention of the modern Enlightenment. Right. You know.
It's just followed a little bit more than it was.
Yeah. Well,
centuries ago.
That's the other thing, is it keeps getting more and more like, thou shalt, like, this is the other neat thing about it, right? Like the important ones get enforced with. Okay, so thou shalt not kill, right? It's not like, you know, 2,000 years ago, anyone really, you know, is like, well, you know, that means criminals too. No. Yeah. Screw them. Yeah. You know what I mean? They broke the law, kill them. Right. Right? It's against, you know, what about the laws of God? It says thou shalt not kill. Yeah, but he broke the rules of God, so we have to break the rules of God for that.
I mean, people were so into that they go watch them be hung or beheaded.
Like, not even that long ago. Like, in the United States, there's, you know, public hangings and in France with the guillotines.
Yeah,
just
even
chopping
like
people's
as early
heads
as
off
the
and hanging people and
1800s.
stuff. Like, oh,
right?
just, yeah, not that long ago.
Yeah.
It's like, oh boy, let's all like get some hot dogs and popcorn and just go watch us hanging.
Right.
Like, people are brutal.
Yeah.
People are brutal.
People are less so now.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I know so many people think that the world...
Well, this is the thing, is in the West we're less brutal because
Right.
we found better ways to live.
Right.
We have found better ways to organize our society so that we don't have to be brutal.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, you know, we can't pretend that people in general are less brutal than that. It's like we've developed a culture that's less brutal than that. There are brutal cultures like that all over the world. People gather and throw stones at women who have been raped.
Yeah.
It happens,
Yeah.
right? This is like it's not like because of the way things are in the West. It's like yeah, that's just the way people are.
Yeah.
Like cultures are different,
Yeah.
like and they develop at different paces, and you know they have to go through their own structures. This is one of the biggest reasons I was against the Iraq War, because the whole it was one of the hugest mistakes that we made in this whole thing is this idea that if you take out a dictator, right, then people will just be democratic like we are.
Right.
It's like that's not how it works.
Yeah.
It's not how it works.
Yeah.
You need to develop through stages. You've got to a culture has to coalesce, and at some point a culture needs a strong man to just enforce something that everyone has to live with, and then they all kind of work out their sectarian differences, because if they don't, the strong man will kill them.
Right.
Right? And so eventually it becomes a single cohesive culture. And there's tribal lineages and stuff like this, but
Right.
they don't matter as much anymore because they're all in this, and then
Eventually they can move up to the blue meme.
and then the blue meme can move up to the orange
Right.
meme, right? But you walk in on a theocracy and you destroy it.
Yeah.
If you walk in on a theocracy and you destroy it, you will get a bunch of warlords.
Right.
Because
so
that's the step down.
We push them back to, at the very least, red.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the way to get them to advance, right?
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. You can't take a state, you can't take a structure. And this is the other thing. Bleeding Hearts, I understand, right? The idea that calling Iraq under Saddam Hussein a stable structure feels like oh my God, how could you say that? The man was gassing the Kurds, stuff like this, right? Like, it's not like he's a good guy.
Right.
Okay? But I'm not saying that stable things are all nice.
Right.
I'm not saying that stability is nice.
Yeah.
Stability is violent.
Yeah.
Right? Even in our world, stability is enforced by police with guns. Stability is violent.
Right.
Right? So at the borders, right? Wherever things don't agree with the power structure, maintaining that stability is violent. Right? And what we have to do is kind of go, okay, cultures and systems develop through stages, and eventually in that pressure cooker, right, there's a culture emerges that can work together enough to move on. And
but now they've just been in
yeah.
a state of disarray for the last 10 plus years.
15, 20 years almost at this point, right? And if
geez.
problem is if we don't let a culture develop through that, this is the same thing that we're having a problem with in with the coddling of the American mind. If you want to look at it kind of like at a family level and kind of individual level instead of cultural level, it's like people are anti-fragile. So they need the adversity, right? You put
grow.
boundaries. It's like you don't just let a little kid do whatever they want.
Right.
They'll hurt themselves.
Right.
So you put boundaries on them, and then they learn what things are not good.
Yeah.
Right? And they go, oh, they don't
and
like the boundaries at first.
They actually thrive, though. They tend to become better children. They tend to be happier, less cranky little bastards.
Right. So you don't tell them it's like if you don't tell them that they can't stick their finger in a light socket, they're going to end up hurting themselves, right?
Yeah.
So you tell them no. You let them figure out what no means. This is a Jordan Peterson talk he gave was you let let a child, you teach a child early on what no means by just literally physically stopping them from doing the thing.
Sure.
And you let them
and
cry.
And use the word probably.
Use the word, and you just stop them. And you let them crawling around and stuff, and you say no, and you grab them, and they cry. Oh, I want to go over. No. Yeah, they cry about it.
Yeah.
Right. You let that. Eventually, they get. Pretty quickly, they get to the point where they
don't cry
say the word
anymore.
no.
Yeah, and
they just don't do it.
It doesn't bother them, or at least they don't. They learn that it's okay as far as like it's not. They don't need to cry about it.
Right.
And and then they start learning where they can go and where they can't go.
Right. And now all of a sudden they're a lot more free, actually.
Right. Yeah.
So they develop a kind of like they can develop categories of. These are the kinds of things that, are in the no territory.
Right.
It's like, well...
And they will keep pushing boundaries until they figure it out. Until they figure out where all they can go. And if you're never telling your kid no, it's not a good thing.
Right. Well, and this is the thing, right? Like, so people think of restrictions as, as entirely just confining. But it's not. It's like... Okay, so take a hose. Water travels through a hose, and it has direction.
Right.
Because of the hose.
Right.
Because it's restricted to a certain path.
Yeah, if it didn't, then you couldn't use it for any particular thing. It'd just be all
over
the place.
It'd just be everywhere, right? So you've got to have some kind of, like, it's, there's the idea that the container gives something a form, right? So the restriction gives direction and form.
Yeah.
We have to, like, be okay with that. We have to allow that. And we've got to say, look, understand, brutal, not good. They got to find. It's terrible that there are that we have to watch these things unfold, but it's none of our business how they work out their cultural differences. I mean, we can put sanctions and kind of but if we destroy their power structures, we're doing them a disservice because we're literally knocking them back into like, okay, let's try warlords again instead.
Yeah.
And now you get ISIS, it's warlords running around going, who's the biggest, baddest warlord with the most weapons? It's like, all right, well, maybe Saddam wasn't so bad by comparison. It's terrible to say that.
It was bad, but the thing is, within a few decades, maybe they would have been able to start moving towards a more
Well,
cohesive...
he would have gotten old. He would have died. You know what I mean? You can kind of look at China in a way, right? Like China, like they're still like Mao is, still revered in China.
Yeah.
Even though he killed like 100 million people, like he's still revered in China. But like their society was like stabilized after all that violence, right? And I still think that they, I'm not like, ooh, yay China, because they're like still horribly authoritarian, but they're loosening. Over time, they're like, okay, well, some of these, ideas about markets are reasonable, and we'll use those. And now the people are coming out of poverty, and like it's getting better. Yeah. It's getting better.
Yeah.
It takes time for like a massive civilization. There's like 2 billion people. It takes time for a massive civilization to like develop through stages like that. And if you just go, oh well, Iraq is pretty small, and we could probably destroy this guy. It's not. We're not going to do that to China.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. 2 billion people over there. We're not going to. Oh, you know what? You're communist, right? That's what the Cold War was all about. It's like we can't really fight these people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's too many of them. They got too many weapons. We can't really just go in there and impose our will. So we're like wagging, finger wagging, right? It's like you people should be doing it different, right? But that's what we should be doing with everyone. We shouldn't be going like, oh, look at this, this country, if they were a big country with nuclear weapons, we'd be finger wagging, But because they're not, we'll just go in there and kill their leaders.
Right.
Right? Well, that's not a good way to let the culture develop. Like that actually like literally makes the culture go backwards.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. We're about at an hour. Should we call it good? We're getting
pretty close. I want to leave you with something. Let me go ahead and hit you. I just want to. I'm going to go to Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan, just because.
Oh my God.
This little tiny clip. He starts the thing with. Theo's asking for to have penises in the future.
Theo Von is
so
hilarious,
funny.
and I don't even know if he is meaning to be hilarious.
Oh God,
but
he's funny.
We watched like at least half of the video with Joe
we'll watch
last
the rest
night.
of it later. But he's absurdly funny. If you get a chance to check out the recent talk with Theo Von and Joe Rogan, I swear to God, Theo Von has put me literally on the floor twice now. Like, I've literally, like, been unable to breathe and laying on the floor because he's absurdly funny.
It's so nonchalant, like, the things he says, and I have no idea if
he's like,
meaning...
strangely, bizarrely out of left field funny.
God. Okay.
It's crazy.
Of course, now we're talking it up.
Yeah, but anyway, this is not necessarily... This is not supposed to be funny. This is not Theo Von being funny. This is Joe Rogan talking about the Gillette thing that we talked about the other day. So, let me put this on right here. There's Theo. God, that guy's funny. But it starts the clip with them asking about whether or not we're going to have penises in the future. But then Joe starts talking about Gillette. So here you go.
Dude, I think, are people even going to have dicks in the future? It just seems like everything's going away so fast, man.
Yeah, they're trying to do that with this new Gillette commercial. You seen that Gillette commercial?
I heard about that. You can shave your buddy or something.
No, this is really mad because it's like an anti-masculine Gillette commercial. It makes like every man look like a misogynist piece of shit. It's such a disturbing commercial. It's like over and over again, men doing douchey shit. Like, hey, bro, aren't you selling razors? What are you doing? You changing the world with your shitty fucking advertiser-based philosophy? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Who fucking greenlit this?
I know.
If I was at Gillette, I'd be like, yo, guys, people get hair, they want to fucking shave it. It's not that complicated. You're not gonna fix it. Imagine if you're a sexist, rapist piece of shit, and you see that Gillette commercial, like, damn, I'm gonna switch my game up. Too much of a dick. Like, does anybody think that Gillette commercials are somehow or other in any way, shape, or form gonna affect culture?
It's bad.
You're selling razors.
It's bad, bro.
It's just a razor.
I'd rather braid my fucking face hair than buy a Gillette again.
Nobody wants to be lectured to. We're tired of that.
Preach.
Stop it. You don't have your shit together. Nobody has their shit together. You telling people how to get their shit together in a fucking razor blade ad.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be racist. We know. Don't be a sexist. Yeah, we know. Most people aren't.
Yeah.
It's like, you got it, like most people are. The video's like most people are. It's not most people
It's
are.
crazy.
That's a disproportionate amount of people that are.
That's what I hate about a lot of these ideology today. It's like they say everybody where I'm from is racist, or everybody's like, some Christian Bible thumping.
Yeah.
And
That's not true.
So many of the people I know are not that at all that it's unbelievable. But so many of the people in these other places, they don't even know anybody from there. So it's like they have no idea.
But they immediately stereotype because of your accent too.
Yeah.
You have a southern accent, people assume you're not bright.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. But it's indicative of what the place used to be like. Like what the world used to be like was like a lot of the rural areas were less educated.
Yeah.
But now that there's the internet, the world is a different place, man. You can meet cool people in Wichita, Kansas. You meet cool people everywhere. Everywhere you go, you're going to run into pockets of cool people.
Yeah.
Cool people are everywhere, man. Some
and
cool
good people are
very
everywhere.
good. And they have different values. And a lot of them are more community-oriented, more friendly.
So, I'm just going to cancel that. Anyway, I'm just want to throw that out there. It was nice to hear them kind of...
It was the longer talk was good, but obviously...
Yeah.
It's long. It's like
long.
3 hours long.
But that was a cool little clip of it, so check that out if you get a chance. It was very funny. We're gonna wrap it up and get rolling. We've got a lot of work to do. I got a couple of phone calls that I've got to return, I think. But it was great hanging out and talking.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
We'll try this again tomorrow. Peace, everyone.